What's up?
What's up, man? You ready for this one?
Game plans. We're going to
Let's
do Mamba Mentality episode.
Oh, yeah.
Tribute to Kobe. Today we're doing Kobe's 10 rules to success. Let's get straight into it.
Yeah, man.
What's up?
What's up, man? We got a good one today.
I'm going to start us off with a little speech from Kobe.
Let's dive right in.
Set the tone.
If I could work hard every day, with being blessed with the physical tools that I have, what would my career be? And I made a promise to myself from that day that I was going to work hard every single day so that when I do retire, I have no regrets. And that was the most important thing for me, is to leave no stone unturned, get better every single day. And if I lived that way, then over time, I'd have something that was beautiful. But that was my philosophy. It seems like a pretty simple one, but if you live your life to just get better every single day, and do that for 20 years, what do you have? That's the trick, isn't it? It's finding what you love to do. We talk about hard work all the time. It's like, man, if you got to get up every single morning and remind yourself how hard you need to work, you probably need to choose a different profession, because that shouldn't be there. I wake up in the morning excited to get to it. If I'm not training, I'm missing it. If I'm not watching a game of basketball, I miss it. There's no place I'd rather be. And if you have that feeling, then you're truly doing what God has put you on this earth to do. I think the best way to prove your value is to work, is to learn, is to absorb, to be a sponge. But you always want to outwork your potential. As hard as you believe you can work harder than that. And that's what I tried to do when I first came in the league. But basketball is such a direct competition sport that me coming in at 17, I hated when my teammates would say, I get hit with an elbow, right? Shaq would hit me with an elbow in practice. And I always had that extra chip on my shoulder. So every day in practice for me was really trying to annihilate everybody that I was playing against. Because I wanted to prove you don't need to babysit me. I'm fine, And so it's always that competitive nature, the work ethic, and curiosity. Because I asked a lot of questions. Playing with Byron Scott, I asked him a lot of questions. Eddie Jones, who was great at chasing guards off the screens, and I didn't understand how to do that. I would sit with him before practice, after practice. Magic, James Worthy, Kurt Rambis, Kareem Abdul, all the Laker greats. I would always sit down and just ask them questions about certain games that I studied growing up. What actually happened there? What did you feel there? Why? Phil introduced meditation to us when he came to our team in 99, 2000. And it was something that I instantly gravitated to because I could see the effects. Right? I used to watch, studying the games, the Bulls teams, and watching their demeanor, watching their composure, playing in a tough place like Utah doing the finals and being down 17. You couldn't tell if they were down 17 or up 20 or a tie game. It never changed. And I was wondering why the hell that is. And that's when I started doing more research. And when Phil came, I immediately gravitated to it and found myself accepting the challenge of finding what that space is. And for the 81-point game, man, to be honest, I wasn't even thinking about the game. My knee was hurting so much. I didn't know then, but I had a flapper joint, a cartilage stuck in my joint line. And so my mind was really trying to go to a place where I don't feel that pain. And the game started, and because of that, I was just in a different space. I wasn't worried about what was to come. I wasn't worried about what just happened. I was just here. And when you're just there in the moment, playing plays right in front of you, your focus is heightened because nothing else matters. That's the space I've tried to get to.
46 from the field. This would be 18 for 20 from the line and an 81-point game. 55 in the second.
So I came up with this idea to do this episode, Kobe's 10 Rules to Success. I knew something that would get you excited.
Sure.
You know, Kobe's a inspiration to you for sure. I know we've talked about it a ton in the past, and same to me as well. There was a lot to take from that speech.
Sure.
A lot of things that go way beyond basketball, about consistency, about making an improvement day after day.
Yeah.
And about being really passionate about what you do. Being curious is another thing that came out of that as well. So online we found Kobe's 10 Rules to Success, and we wanted to go through them, talk a little bit about them. We got a Kobe quote with each individual one. So I'll start.
Yeah, man.
First one, have a champion's mentality. And the Kobe quote is, I can't relate to lazy people. We don't speak the same language. I don't understand you. I don't want to understand you. You know, I think this is about having confidence in yourself, staying ahead of your competition. You know, I think that confidence in your effort and knowing that you have the ability to succeed if you put the work in, that's a piece of champion's mentality. What do you think?
Yeah, I think when you look at the mentality of a champion, you first define what is a champion. Obviously, that's like a winner at the highest level, right? And having a champion's mentality, I think, entails a few things. Number one is, those days when, you don't want to, maybe you don't have the confidence, maybe something's not going your way, like you're not going to be pulled off of your, quest, or, let those things that are outside of your control impact your overall mindset or mentality, and when we get into these, right, like a lot of people might think like, well, what's this have to do with entrepreneurship or business or real estate or whatever? And there's so many parallels, to the mentality of, the mentality of being a champion, and then all the other rules that we're gonna go through, and how the implementation of those can, help you grow in your business, in your, networking, in your relationships, whatever that might be. But having a champion's mentality is, I feel like, the mentality of I've got a vision, I'm headed towards it, everything else is just noise.
Yeah, I agree. I think a level of focus as well, understanding that you are in control of your own destiny.
Yep.
And if you're willing to put the work in, you can be a success.
Of course. Yeah,
All right.
Totally agree. I totally agree.
Let's go on to number 2.
You want to go number 2? Rule number 2, outwork your potential. Kobe says, the moment you give up is the moment you let someone else win. So what does outworking your potential mean? When potential is subjective, right? Like, what is your actual potential? I personally don't really, believe in the theory of potential. I think your potential, you create your own potential, right? I mean, to a certain extent, obviously I'm never going to be 7 feet tall, so that potential's gone. But when it comes to effort and things of that nature, like you set your potential, right? And outworking your potential is whenever you hit what you think is the limit of what you can push yourself to is taking it another step forward. Maybe that's just stepping out of your comfort zone. Like, hey, I don't do well with public speaking, or I don't do well presenting to a group, or, I don't do well in this setting or that setting or whatever it might be. Putting yourself in those situations on purpose to then expand yourself. Because if you're not outworking those places of not being comfortable, you can't grow. There's no growth. You have to do it. You have to fail. You have to fall on your face. And I feel like outworking your potential is all about that, right? And then in relating that to your business, there's so many ways you could do that. I mean, we're doing a podcast, and when we started this, it was, part of it was like, hey, do I really want to get on camera and do this? And it's like, hey, F it, I'm going to do it. Whatever happens, I hope I sound ridiculous, but that is, in my mind, what outworking your potential means.
Yeah, I think the assumption that you can outwork your potential is a huge mindset shift. I think that understanding that you have an opportunity to do something above and beyond is a really important thing to consider. As you grow and learn and work to improve, you are going to raise your ceiling and have more potential and more potential and more potential.
Sure.
And outwork your potential, just like he says. Yeah. There's the ceiling, especially in entrepreneurship, is a large part of it is just about the effort you put in. What you put in is what you're going to get out.
Right.
And the more you put in, the more you get out. So
inputs equal outputs, man. And that goes for everything. That goes in the gym, that goes in your work, that goes in your relationship with your spouse, your kids. It really is. When you look at any of these successful people, I know we're doing Kobe or whatever, but success leaves clues. Like there people, rarely is someone just wakes up and like, oh, look at this. I'm, this ultra successful person, or I, became this. Like that doesn't happen. And the success leaving clues. The second piece of that is in thinking of potential, the first limiting factor is the people that you allow around you in your inner circle, and them influencing what you think your potential might be. And we all have those people, and a lot of times it's family, friends, close people. And they're like, you're going to do what? Why?
Right.
Why do you want to do that? Well,
why do you want to do a podcast?
Right. Or why do you want to accomplish some physical feat, whether that's running a marathon or something like that. And a lot of times it's just somebody projecting their, what they feel their potential is on you. Well, I can't do it. So, that's where the family thing comes in a lot, right? So you start kind of breaking through, like maybe you come from a family that's like not physically healthy, and then all of a sudden you're going to do something, and that can come from a sense of jealousy or a sense of like, nobody's ever done this before. What makes you think you're going to be able to do that? And kind of opening your mind to, what you are truly capable of.
Yeah, I think, let's just bring it down to a small level. I think when people trying to understand why we're doing this podcast, it doesn't just because we think people are dying to listen to us. Sometimes I have friends that actually listen to this podcast and enjoy it. And I appreciate them for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe.
Right.
But really, there's a number of goals that I have in doing this. And while this is a small part of my business, it's a building block. And it's a building block that I wanted to add because it's going to allow me to accomplish a number of different things. and make me better.
Yeah, sure.
One of the quotes that I put in here, one of my favorite quotes all time. I'm sure I've told you this before, but it's, if a shortcut was easy, it would just be called the way.
Amen.
And that's one quote I take with me all the time, because truly there's no shortcuts. If there were shortcuts, everyone would do it.
Sure.
People need to understand that while some people are lucky enough to put themselves in positions where they may have gotten a fast pass, that can't be the case for all of us, and most of the successful people didn't get a fast pass. So, you ready to go on number 3?
Yeah, it's kind of segmenting into that, and like you said, tying potential into number 3, and then the quote that you just gave. It's like, you can't allow like, say you and I have the same goal. You accomplish it in 6 months, whatever. It takes me 16 months. You can't worry about those things, right? Because, at the end of the day, we're still at the same place. That there is no if there's a shortcut, like you said, it would be the way. Everybody's in a different spot. You're from a different starting point. You've got different attributes. We have different personalities. There, all of that psychology plays into
different
it, right?
stuff in our life. Different.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you've got some sort of physical limitation. You had an injury or whatever. Like, there could be a million things, right? You can't allow those things and the comparison syndrome to then limit your mental space in terms of like, hey, what is my potential? Like, you know what? So-and-so was right. This was a bad idea. And I think that's a good way to, segment right into number 3.
Yeah. Number 3, learn from your failures. The Kobe quote is, everything negative, pressures, and challenges, it's all an opportunity for me to rise. I learned this, honestly, I learned this through depression. I was someone who was really hard on myself, had high expectations, and was really hard on myself when I didn't reach certain expectations that I had of myself. Other people had expectations of me as well, family and whatever. And whenever I struggled at a young age, I took it upon myself really hard. And through therapy at the time, I learned that I had an opportunity to take those moments when I was most frustrated with myself and be introspective and look towards the past for opportunities to get better and say, okay, what did I do wrong? How can I change that, move forward? How can I take something out of that and push myself to never let that happen again, or to try to never let that happen again? I mean, you can't control some things, right? And when I think of failures now, I think of them not as failures, but I am really optimistic in my lowest moments, and I'm really grateful for what I've been through, because even when things are really tough, I'm thinking of, gosh, this is an opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. With failures, I also don't believe in failures. Like, I don't, and it's a hard thing. Like, and it's not like, not to say it like you're like I'm some kind of tough guy or anything, but everybody struggles with that, with failure. But at the end of the day, there's no finite point, right? Like, what is failure? There's no failure. The only failure is if you don't start or you stop trying. That's a failure. You quit.
Yeah.
Just because you maybe messed something up, it's a learning opportunity. It's a building block, you know.
I think the failure really is not taking something from a hard moment, not getting a lesson out of the challenge.
100%. I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, you come up against something, maybe it's something in your business and you hit a tough spot, your business starts to suffer. You're not producing how you want. You know, okay, why? Let me sit down, let me look at my time, my prospecting, my marketing, my, you know, whatever it is. Like, okay, let's learn from this. I had a bad quarter. What went well? What didn't go well? What am I going to do about the things that didn't go well? Okay, I'm looking at, you know what? I didn't time block at all for 2 months. I didn't spend any time prospecting. I didn't spend it. Okay, well, the only way that becomes a failure is you acknowledge those things and then don't do anything about it. Then it's not, you know, then and even at that, I would almost argue it's not a failure. You never wanted to do it to begin with, right? So kind of
or
the
not
video
bad enough, right?
You know, and Kobe's talking about, you know, if you've got to convince yourself every morning to go do the work, then you need to find something else to do. So, you know, when you're evaluating, you know, just to relate it to business, you know, a shortcoming or a shortfall in your business, and you can acknowledge it, you can see it, and then you're not willing to go do it. Well, are you even doing, like, what are you doing? Like, it should be a natural progression. Like, okay, I see problem, address problem, problem solved. Not, I don't want to do that. Well, do you even want to, like, what? Like, that doesn't compute in my mind. Like, if I've got a problem in my business, maybe it's operationally or with communication or whatever, and I notice it, but I don't do anything about it, then I don't really care. I never cared about it to begin with.
That's right.
But sorry, I kind of ranted there for a second.
You want to go to segment 4? You're up.
Let's get right into it. And be a long-term thinker. As far as a quote, trust me, setting things up right from the beginning will avoid a ton of tears and heartache.
I'm glad you got this one. This is right up your alley.
Long-term thinker, man. This is up my alley. But you can't be stuck like, I'm going to fix this in 5 minutes, especially when it comes to business. Or maybe it's like, hey, I need to lose some weight, you know, or, you know, I want to date my spouse again. You hear people talk about that, right? Like, I'm going to start dating my spouse. You don't, like, just wake up tomorrow and then everything is just better, right? Like, there's a process, right? Like, okay, I need to think ahead. What am I going to do? I've got a plan. I'm going to do this. I've got to do X, Y, Z. What does that look like? You know, and the same goes for your business. I'm looking ahead. I'm looking at market trends. I'm looking at, you know, technology. I'm looking at whatever. And, you know, same for your personal life. Like, what are my goals? Not what do I want to accomplish this month or this quarter? What do I want to accomplish in 10 years? And there's a quote, I'm going to butcher it. You know, most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. When's the last time you heard somebody be like, hey, I've got a 10-year goal? Most people look at, like, 10 years. What are you talking about? And, you know, you have a long-term picture. And then what you do is you work that backwards into daily bites, right? Like, this is my plan. This is my long-term plan. This is what I'm going to do every day to get there.
That's right.
And then I'm just going to ignore all the noise, all the bullshit, and I'm just going to stay the path. This is my plan. I'm going here. And then in the middle, you're going to, you know, with the long-term vision in mind, you're going to reevaluate and adjust and adapt, because if not, that's just dumb. But you're still looking forward, and it's just doing the things every day and that's the being here in the moment. Like, you can still have a long-term vision and be in the moment at the same time.
So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but what do you do as far as planning your vision?
I guess that depends on what it is. I think vision, you know, whether it's whatever, you know,
Covita.
Covita, you've got to be intentional and you got to sit down and think about it. Like how many people, have actually, I bet if you polled listeners and said, how many of you have thought about the next 10 years of your business? Where do you want to be? I would say some, maybe loosely, like, oh yeah, I'd like to retire. I'm talking very detailed. Where do you want to be in 10 years? Not like, oh, in 10 years, I'll be this old and, maybe I'll retire or maybe I'll do that. No, like very specifically, where do I want to be? So I think that's number one. You have to be very specific, right? So like for me, when I look at Covita, I've got a long-term vision in terms of staffing, in terms of production, what my role is going to look like, what, that team structure is going to look like. And obviously over the course of time, that's going to adjust with the industry and how things shift, but you still have that image, right? Like, hey, this is what I want this to look like very specifically, and that's where I think with long-term thinking, right? People are like, that's 10 years down the road. Like I'll get somewhere. They're like, no, be specific. Where do you want to go? Like if you shoot at nothing, you're going to hit nothing, so where are you aiming? And then that will influence your day-to-day action items. Because then you shape your mindset around where I want to be. And then that impacts what you're going to do right now.
I think that's in line with trying to get better every day. Like Kobe said at the beginning of that, trying to get better every day. If you don't know what your goal is, what are you trying to get better at? Right?
Roll the dice every day. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
For me, we've talked about it. I get up early, but I've got a very, specific set of goals for myself. And when my alarm goes off, I don't look at it as like, I'm going back to bed. It's like, okay, it's time to go. Like every day, not to sound cliche, every day is an opportunity, right? Like we only live once. We're all here. We get whatever amount of time we get, and then we're gone. And so your existence is gone. Like if you look at a lifespan, I'm getting way too deep. Like over say you take a string and you stretch it out all the way across the city of Columbus. That represents eternity, like from the beginning of time to the end of time. Your lifespan is like a speck of sand in the large scheme of things in the middle of that. Like you just drop right in here. This is where you were alive. Your time alive was this big, and then you were gone. So like, well, what are you going to do? You're just going to wake up aimlessly every day doing nothing? Like
just wait for the end.
Yeah, just wait for the end. That's a miserable existence. So when you think about that long-term vision, that gives you something. You've got to have something to live for, whatever that is. That's going to be different for everybody.
But that's the journey. I mean, the journey, Kobe says, and show it, but Kobe says it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, right?
100%. And here's the thing, like I've had this conversation with a therapist. As far as destination is concerned, like you think people will say, well, I can't wait until I get there. And I'm having this, we're having this conversation, and I'm like, there is no there. There is no there. There is no there.
There's no there.
Because you don't know like I could walk outside and get hit by a car and then it's over. So
there's no there. There
is no there.
That's a great.
There's no there. Now you're heading that direction, but you have no influence over whether you ever get there or not. Wherever there is. That's why I say there is no there. There's just right here. I'm going this way, and I'm going to operate here and now with a long-term outlook.
As far as you know, you're on a rocket ship headed into space, and God knows where it's aimed, right?
100%.
You know where you started. You know where you were looking out at, but where it ends, nobody knows.
That, I think it's also very important to have retrospect and kind of look back too. because when you are in the day-to-day every day, sometimes it's really hard to see on that long-term vision how far you've come. And I think it's very important to stop, reflect, and it's easy to beat ourselves up. I'm harder on myself than probably anybody. You hear people talk about self-talk. My self-talk is awful. I would say what I say to myself to the people I hate the most. But it's important because sometimes when you're stuck in the grind every day of things, you're like, oh, this isn't, going how I think it should. And then you take a time out, you pause, and you kind of look back and you're like, oh man, in the last 4 years, well, this is where I was, and this is where I'm not, we're chunking away at this just a little bit at a time.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about it this year, this is my 10th year in the business, being the milestone that it is, more or less. I've had a lot of opportunity to sort of reflect on that and think about how it all started, having a great opportunity and really putting in the effort to get to where I am. And it's something I've looked back on a lot this year, and just unbelievable how far I've come, moving back from Chicago to Columbus, moving back to Columbus, and in 10 years, built a career, strong business, met my wife, have a family, have an amazing house, have rental properties, just the two most amazing little boys. It's unbelievable. Things that I never would have projected possible in that amount of time. And certainly if you asked me where I would be in 2024, I never could have predicted any of this, or even maybe set any of this as the place that I, thought I could be, right?
Sure. Yeah. You limit, everyone does this. You limit yourself more than anybody else ever will.
Damn right.
You want to hit number 5?
Yeah, that's a great segue. Find your passion. Passion is the fuel for success. If you fucking love what you do and you are excited about doing it every day, that's your fuel. That's what gasses up the freight train to success. That's what gives you the racing fuel, the rocket fuel to where you want to go. Being passionate.
100%.
100%. I was talking to somebody, mentor of mine, and we were talking last week about goals and business and whatever, and they know that I love what I do, but of course technology is something that I'm really passionate about as well. And I talk to them and other people and about my love for different technology and computers and all these things, and I was having a really frustrating weekend. A lot of different things were happening with my business, and she looks at me and she goes, "Hey, are you sure you're shouldn't be doing something in technology? I mean, you're just so passionate about it." And I said, "Fuck no, I love what I do." I said, I know there's going to be really hard days, and I know that there's going to be really challenging moments. But for the last however long, I've been loving the opportunity to put in the work. I've shifted in the last year or so where I spend a lot of evenings during the week after I could get the boys to bed, putting in extra hours trying to find ways to improve. And while I'm spending during the day doing some things that are like just general business stuff, like taking care of clients and doing showings and all that stuff, I've shifted and instead of watching TV or whatever, take a moment to make sure that I'm using part of my day to make improvements. And that is easy for me to do every day because I love doing it. Once I started treating this as building a business for myself rather than just trying to be a real estate agent, trying to build everything around it, that's something that really unlocked even more passion for what I do.
Sure.
I know you're passionate. I know you had a goal about starting Covita and starting your own business, and I know that that's something that has really driven you above and beyond just being a good lender.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with everything, really. I don't like to use the word motivation because motivation is fleeting, right? Like one day you're motivated, one day you feel like a pile of crap, one day you don't want to get out of bed. One morning somebody pissed in your Cheerios and now you. So like motivation, that to me is, some days you're motivated, some days you're not. But when you have a true passion for something, whatever it is, that motivation is irrelevant. You're showing up like, hey, I've got my hard hat and my lunch pail and I'm here to work. So, I think that is, somebody might be like, well, how do I know if I found my passion, right? Like, what am I passionate about? And again, that comes back to intentionality and sitting down and being like, unabashedly worried about what someone else might think or say. Maybe you want to start a candy store. I don't know, like what, and for some reason you're like, oh, man, this is a dumb. But if it's something that
drives you,
gets your gears, like you got to do it. Again, like going back to that span of life. So like you're just going to live your whole life and then you're old and be like, man, I really had this thing I really wanted to do my whole life. I really wish I would have done it. That's not that. Now that's failure. That's failure. You get old and you look back and you're like, I had this thing, this fire for whatever burning to do something. And I just never did it. I never tried.
The way I think about it is I think there's a lot of people and there's a lot of mentality that people might look at something that they enjoy doing and want more time to go after it and want the ability to go after it. And they feel like a dog on a leash, barking at something, trying to get to something. You got to find a way to get that feeling where you're off the damn leash and you can chase that motherfucker down.
A lot of times you put yourself on the leash.
That's right.
Of
course.
And
yeah,
that's the exactly right. Part of it being successful at anything is, sometimes you're going to alienate somebody in your life. Right. And that's where sitting down and having a set of priorities is important. Right. And, hey, this is, these are my values, my virtues. This is what I'm passionate about. And as long as I'm making my decisions in alignment with that, the other stuff is just excuses, right? Where it's like, man, well, my buddies are going to be upset if I don't, get out this weekend. But that's not in alignment with what
your goals are.
You're taking what somebody else might think of you and putting it above, and here's what's going to happen is, I really wish I wouldn't have, I should have just stayed. I should have, that you can't allow outside influences to curb whatever your passion is. And if that means you got to cut, maybe there's a friend that is holding you back and, Does that suck? Yeah, it sucks a lot, but that's just the nature of what it is, right? When we left the old company and started here, there were people that I considered friends that had to get cut out, right? Because, the separation went how it went, but, you got to trim the fat. It had to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
It had to happen.
Yeah.
Like,
I learned.
If I got the mindset of like, oh man, I'm really going to upset some people if I do this, I'd still be doing what I was doing and probably miserable. Which is what a lot of people fall into the trap of, where it's like, well, what about the uncertainty of this? It's like, no, I want to do this. I'll figure it out in the meantime. I'll figure it out.
That's one thing I really love about my job and also my path, Steve, is having moved all over, from Bexley to Denver to Chicago, back here, and then being in a business where I meet all kinds of new people all the time. One of the things that I value most about that is there are groups of people that I've made friends with that are not the type of people that drive me forward, or, they're people that have held me back in some way, shape, or form, whether it's my fault or their fault, whatever. There's a group of people that I recognize that aren't the most beneficial for me to reach my goals. And having moved from place to place, it was easy for me to cut people out, trim the fat, like you said, just remove people from this, not keep in touch, just say, I got to move on.
The text message.
Exactly right. You can move on. And continue to improve your circle, continue to improve the influencers in your life, and also have the ability to say, okay, these are people that I have just started to get to know that I think can be really great influences, and that can continue to evolve over time.
Sure. No, I agree.
All right, let's go on to number 6.
This is probably a good segment. Challenge yourself to grow. If you're afraid to fail, then you're probably going to fail. And, to relate that to a few things, just an analogy. So, as you know, I'm very into golf.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing anybody will tell you is you can't think about negative outcomes, right? Like if you're about to hit a tee shot,
don't think about the sand trap.
Like, don't hit it in the water. Don't hit it in the water. Shit, I hit it right in the water.
Yeah.
But you put that in your head.
Yeah.
Right. And that goes for everything. If you think you're afraid, if you are afraid to fail, then you're probably going to fail. Like, again, that goes back to that initial rule and mindset of like, there is no failure. I had an outcome. I move on. Right. And when you relate this to self-improvement and growth, challenge yourself to grow. That means you're not going to grow if you're always putting yourself in situations that you're comfortable in. There's no growth that happens there.
That's right.
We used to have at a house we lived in previously, we had rose bushes. And every year you got to go out and you got to cut them back, right? You got to cut them down. You cut it all the way down to nothing. And then next year it grows back even bigger. You've got to look at your life and your improvement the same way. Like that pruning process is painful, but again, long-term vision, I've got to go through this to get to where I'm going. Maybe that's, your business isn't where you want it to be. Your sales aren't where you want them to be. What do I need to do? I need to prospect. How do I need to prospect? I got to get on the phones. Shit, I hate the phones. That makes me nervous. Well, you cannot get on the phones and you'll just be right where you are, or you can muddle your way through it. And guess what? After probably a few weeks and some reps, you're like, okay, well, this wasn't that bad. and then eventually you become comfortable with it. And then that's just a part of your routine. And that's why that long-term vision is important, that which fuels your passion and then influences your day-to-day activities, where it's like, okay, well, this is where I want to go. I got to do this. And it's not even at that point, it doesn't even become a thought. It's just like, okay, this is just what I got to do. And then you just do it. That's not to say you won't have hurdles or you won't have reservations or, doubts in your mind, but that's where you challenge yourself to grow. Like, you've got to also have some introspect and look at yourself and be like, okay, where do I need to grow? Not just my business, but where does my business need me? Where do I have holes? And going back to, that circle of people around you, that's where, that's very important as well. And this, I've called you, we've worked together. We've done lots of deals together between me, you, the team, everyone. And I don't care how good of a relationship I have with anybody. I have no problem calling you and being like, hey, any feedback?
That's right.
Give it to me. And you have to want that. You have to seek that out. Otherwise, you're going to just be stuck. And half the time and it's not bad. Like, you just like, oh, I'm doing fine. Everybody thinks I'm doing fine. But it's not about being fine. It's about, what was rule number one? Or what, having a champion's mentality. Well, how can I get a little better? How can I do this a little better?
Improving every day. I mean, I think that's a piece of it is okay. You have to think a step ahead and say, okay, today's an opportunity to get better. What are the things that I need to get better at? That is a consideration, like you said, of your flaws, of the things that are challenging to you, the things that don't come easy, and diving straight at those things.
You got to work on them.
That's right.
If I suck at the phones, you're not going to just pick up the phone one day and make calls and just be good at it. You got to do reps. You're going to fumble through them. You're going to you're going to hang up the phone sometime. You're like, I sounded like an idiot. That was so bad. But if you don't do that, you're not just going to wake up one day and be like, all right, I got this. I just had the best sales call of my life. Like, that's unreasonable. That's an unreasonable expectation.
Steve, I would have been 2021 maybe. I recognize people doing videos, right? Online, on Instagram, doing listing videos, talking to the camera videos on Instagram, and that is nothing I'm comfortable doing. My hands sweat when I'm in front of a crowd talking. I hate it. So what did I do? I fought our team did videos that were like, you get to decide, you get an hour to shoot. What do you want to talk about? And did a bunch of videos that I broke down to help share my business online and to get in front of a camera and work on it. Then I started doing listing videos for every listing I can afford to do a listing video on. Everyone that's, I think I should do a listing video. I do a listing video on. I started a YouTube channel. Step 3, I started a podcast with you. I started talking on camera, having a conversation with you, find a way to chop it up, post it on Instagram, post it on YouTube, talk about different topics, feel more comfortable, and just attack it head on. It's something that is going to benefit my business if I'm able to do it. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to learn how to do it by little incremental improvements over time. Doing it repetitive, the repetitive aspect of it, continuing to do it, staying consistent. Trying to make the time for it. obviously we had a little gap in doing the podcast, and really it was me being my life being too hectic, and I need to be more consistent at it. So what have I do? What am I doing? I'm being more consistent at it. I want to be more available to my family. So what am I working on now? I'm working on setting up my do not disturb on my phone, making sure that aspect is silencing notifications that distract me when I'm hanging out with my kids, when I'm hanging out with my wife. Every single day, there's until it's really almost the entirety of the day, but I have different versions of silencers on my phone where I still get notifications, but they don't show up. And I can go and scroll on my phone and see them, but it's all some version of do not disturb. I can get phone calls during certain times, text messages from clients almost all the time. It'll come through. But other notifications from different apps, whatever, there's different stages. I have a work do not disturb. I have a family do not disturb that starts at like 4:30 till about 8 every day. And then after that, it's a sleep where it silences all the stuff so that I can go to bed and my phone doesn't ding one single time unless it's an emergency. And I can sleep comfortably, so that I have arranged all of that and engineered all of that to make less distractions and be more present.
I love it.
All right, we're on to number 7.
Yes, sir.
Keep going. If you want to be great at something, there's a choice you have to make. What I mean by that is there's inherent sacrifices that come along with that. Family time, hanging out with friends, being a great friend, being a great son, nephew, whatever the case may be. I think that the reason why I picked this was there are sacrifices that need to be made when you are just passionate about what you want to do and you have a goal to be successful long term. You have to embrace the sacrifices. You have to realize that every time you are choosing between something that you want to do and something that your business needs of you, or your goals need of you, that is an opportunity to reach your goals faster. Mm-hmm. And the more you can make the choice to sacrifice, the faster you're going to reach what you want to, what the end goal is.
Sure. I think part of the process of, keep going is also having a good relationship, with that failure piece that we talked about earlier, and detaching yourself from outcomes. If you are so attached to the outcome of something that you're doing, you're putting yourself at a much higher probability of quitting. You have to, everybody knows that person that you've seen them, that they just they give zero, about what happens, right? And you have to approach your goals with that same type of mentality when it comes to the outcomes. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very challenging to keep going. You're going to want to stop because you're worried about, I'm not going to get there. I'm not going to make it. I'm going to make it. And then you're going to quit. So to keep going, you have to have a healthy relationship with failure and realize that there is no failure. There is no there. And you just keep going. This is what I'm passionate about. I'm going to keep moving in this direction. Come hell or high water, that's where I'm going. I'm going to stumble. I'm going to fall. I'm going to alienate some people. It is what it is. I'm going to keep going. And that just has to be, that has to be your mindset, especially in your, it goes for everything, but, in relating it to business, you're going to have, think of the market that we're in right now. Like there was a statistic, I'm going to butcher this, but, we're in one of the worst housing, mortgage markets in the last like 30 years in terms of transactions, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you allow that to consume you, you are going to get stuck. You're going to get stuck. It's just, okay, I'm not really worried about all of this mess. I have a goal. I'm headed at it. Business is down. You talk to people like, oh, how's the market? You guys slow? I'm up. Year over year,
I'm up. I'm up. I'm ahead of my goals 6 months ahead. I'm ahead of my goals. I'm ahead of last year. And
I had a team here, had their team meeting in the office with me this week. And, we're of course discussing production and goals and numbers and all that kind of stuff. And, they asked me like, how's your year going? And I said, I'm up year over year. And I'm not saying that to brag, but they're like, oh, you're up? Like how? Everything's down. And it's like, that's all here. Like to get to where you want to go, I think there's a Nick Saban quote, it takes what it takes, right? Like you don't get to pick.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no, it just takes what it takes. So, if you have a goal of X, units sold, and in past years it took, 20 calls a day. Well, now it might take 40 calls a day. But that's not to say you can't get there. It just takes more to get there.
That's right.
And you've got to be able to, okay, I did my 20. I've always done my 20. Okay, well, you got to keep going. 20's not going to get it. 20's not going to get it right now. You got to do 40. I don't want to do 40. Back to number 6. Challenge yourself to grow. Okay, I'm going to embrace the suck and I'm just going to do it. And that when you're looking at your big picture long-term goals, like again, that just becomes a part of who you are and what you do. It's not like I'm going to wrestle with it for 45 minutes to decide. I'm going to sit here and stare at my phone and decide whether or not I'm going to pick it up and start calling people or posting social media content or whatever that might be. I don't. That's just my take on it anyway.
Yeah, I think the more at bats that you give yourself, the more opportunities you can create, right?
Mm-hmm.
The more home runs, the more triples, the more doubles, the more everything.
Keep going.
So keeping going is about giving yourself more at bats. The path to success is only going to get harder. The higher you get towards the top of the mountain, the more tired you're going to be, the more challenging the terrain's going to be. Sometimes it gets steeper. Sometimes,
right.
It gets rockier. Sometimes the footing is more challenging to overcome.
Sure.
The higher you get up that ladder, or that mountain. But it's important to understand that keeping going is about giving yourself more opportunity. When I was in high school, I went to Alaska with National Outdoor Leadership School. And we did, I think it was 180 miles hike in the Takitna mountain range over 30 days. And because of not only my size, but a couple circumstances where there were people in a group that had challenges. One rolled an ankle and some other things. I was carrying about a 70-pound pack about 9 miles a day over really challenging terrain. And, you know, I was 17 years old. At a certain point, it was such an unbelievable struggle and something that I was doubting myself substantially. You know, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have 18 more days of this. How the heck am I going to continue? How the hell am I going to make it another day? I'm hungry. You know, we were eating dehydrated food, and we were on 7-day rations where at one point we ran out of food in 5 days because we were so hungry from the previous ration. We ate everything too quickly, and we were out of food for 2 days. And then when we got that food, we ran out of food in 3 days, and we had to go like another 3 days without like real stuff to eat. We had a few little things to like nibble on, and then we caught a fish, ate a fish out in the wilderness, but went days without food, hiking. No bullshit. But when I was about halfway through, I had a day, and there's this, just, they call it the Alaska factor, where there's these expansive valleys, and you see this mountain, and you're like, oh yeah, that's just take me an hour to get to that other mountain. Well, that mountain is just so fucking big that it's a full day away, and you just can't, your body and your mind can't wrap its head around how far that is away, just because it's that big. It's called the Alaska factor. And so you start walking, and it just seems like it's still
you're not getting anywhere.
You're not getting anywhere, right? And I had a moment where I realized that the best way to get from point A to point B was focusing on the little teeny pieces where I'm putting one foot in front of the other. And there was a whole day when I just focused on taking the next step. And that was easy. Taking the next step, one step at a time. It was a total mind-bending experience. It was something that was really challenging. And I just fought. And I wanted to give up. Honestly, I wanted to give up. 2 people gave up during our trip and were put on one on a helicopter and one on a pontoon plane that landed, and were taken away because they couldn't make it. And because I was able to break it down and focus on one step in front of the other, I was able to make it through. It was a really powerful moment for me, and
That's
something
awesome.
I took with me, move forward. So keep going.
Keep going.
All right. You're up.
Protect your dreams. Haters are a good problem to have. Nobody hates the good ones. They hate the great ones. I think there's a few pieces to this. One, protect your dreams to me is a mentality, right? A lot of people would tell you to be careful who you share your dreams with, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I necessarily subscribe to that line of thinking. You just got to not care what somebody else thinks about them.
Yeah. Sometimes I intentionally tell people what my plans are so that
accountability.
I'm more likely to do it, right?
Right. Yeah, there's a sense of accountability, like, oh, well, I told them now I can't not do it.
They're expecting me to do it.
Right. And, you know, we could go on for a whole nother hour about, you know, why people care what your dreams are. Anyways, I don't understand why anybody would ever really even matter, as long as it's not doing any physical, emotional harm to me. I could care less what your dreams are. I mean, not that I don't care, but you get my point. So, you have to get honest with yourself about your dreams first and realize, it's okay to dream even as an adult. I think sometimes there's a negative connotation, like, you're almost 40 years old. Why are you got dreams? Yeah, I do. And, nobody questions your dreams. When you're a 7-year-old and you want to be the president, or you want to be a firefighter or a policeman or whatever it is that, you think you want to be when you're a kid, that's all great. Like, hey, you can do, everybody's heard it. You can do whatever you want to. You can be whatever you want to be, right? There's no, like, that applies when you're an adult too. That childlike faith of, whatever it is that you're passionate about, you can't lose that just because of an age parameter.
That's
right?
Yeah, there's stories.
There's people out there that are 80 years old running marathons. Like,
there's people that are, school teachers and become billionaires at age 65, 70 years old. They started different business when they're 50s or 60s and become billionaires. I mean, it depends on what your goal is, but you can't limit yourself by your age. You can't limit yourself by where you're currently sitting.
No, I'm not there yet.
That's right.
Yet.
That's right. And as long as you're willing to be, to put in the work and have a passion for it, I think that's what's going to help you achieve those dreams. And being serious about your dreams, I think, is another thing too. I think it's one thing to say, I want to drive a Ferrari, right? But if you want to drive a Ferrari, you can't just say, I want to drive a Ferrari. You can't just say, I hope one day I own a Ferrari. It's you gotta find a way to make that happen.
It takes what it takes.
It takes what it takes. And there's only one, there's only one way to make that happen, and it's you striving to make that happen. And so I think it's really about, I think a lot of us have dreams, and I think just being intentional and serious about your dreams is something that's going to help you be successful and something that's going to help you achieve those.
Agreed. I think a lot of people don't necessarily purposefully try to talk you out of your dreams. They just say things that inherently can knock you off of your vision, right?
Or doubt it. Yeah, I think doubt it as well.
It's like, oh, you're okay. Oh, man, a long way off. Not necessarily saying that you can't do it, but Do
you know how much? Do you know how expensive Ferraris are? Or
right?
Or do you know how much it costs to retire? Or whatever the case is, I think keeping them to yourself in such a way that allows you to remove yourself from those people that are going to make you doubt it.
Sure.
Right? You never let somebody else hold you back from what you want to do, because they're not going to help you get there, right?
No, they're not. Not at all. I actually like it. I love when people. If I've some things, that conversations I've been in, whether it be friends, counterparts, whatever. If somebody says something, I screenshot them and I keep them.
You got Michael Jordan, Kobe.
I keep them.
Kobe chip on your shoulder.
I got bulletin board material.
Yeah.
Right. And because there are going to be moments where you're down, things aren't going how you want them to go, whatever it might be, odds are stacked against you. whatever. If you can just find that little bit of something to draw from to give you the juice, right? It's like, okay, you find that moment, whatever it might be, you know, there's so many things like I like, well, if I'm in a moment of weakness, or I'm tired, or, you know, whatever it might be, I've got memories from childhood when I'm in college trying to, you know, I play basketball, and, you know, and you, it happens in an instant. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know all the neurology and how it works, but you've all felt it. You just lock in. There's like something, there's a memory, there's a text somebody sent you, and it clicks in, and you go into a zone, and you are focused, and and you're going to need that. You're going to need that, because you're not going to have that every day. So it's not going to just naturally come. You got to go find it. And sometimes you got to go crawl into a dark place to find it.
I listen to Tupac, Fuck All Y'all. You know that song?
You know, maybe it is music. Maybe there's a lot of things it could be. Maybe it's a quote. Maybe it's a video. Maybe it's, you know, who cares what it is? It could, you know, on the topic of Kobe used to listen to the Halloween theme music in his headphones on repeat before. Like, yeah. I don't know if anybody's ever listened to the Halloween theme song from start to finish all the way. You're like, this was listened to on, what a psychopath, right? Yeah. But, you know, whatever it is, whatever gets you where you need to be mentally speaking, you got to go there.
I think that goes into number 9, which is be driven.
Yeah. Go for it.
This is the moment I accept the most challenging times will always be behind me and in front of me. You know, there's no, in my eyes, on the road to success, you know, it's a staircase with no landing, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's stair after stair after stair after stair, and you got to be willing to take step after step after step after step. You have to be willing to, and just appreciative of the fact that as good as, in retrospect, you know, you where you are, you be grateful for where you are. You look back and you know that you put in a lot of work to get to that point. You went through a lot of hard times. You sacrificed, and you're grateful for where you are. But never for one time think that there's not going to be tough times ahead. So mentally prepare yourself for that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I just think you got to be in that mamba mentality where you know that the game the opponent you're playing, in most cases is yourself, but the opponent you're playing is going to be tough today, tomorrow, the next day, the next day, the next day. And the more challenging you make it for yourself, the stronger you're going to be, the more mentally tough you're going to be, the better prepared you are going to be for the next challenge and the next challenge and the next challenge. And you're going to be able to take on bigger and bigger opponents.
Sure.
Every time. You know, the more shacks you take on, the bigger the shack you can overcome in the future, and don't be afraid to take on shack, because you're allowed to lose. You're allowed to lose a game here and there, but it's about just attacking till you win, you know.
So it's also being confident in the work that you've put in, right? Like, if you're doing the things that you need to do day to day, you should be able to go into a challenging situation being, one, you've got to embrace the challenge, right? You got to know the challenging times are coming. You have to seek them out. You have to almost seek them out. Like, okay, I see. I'm coming right at it because I've done the work that I need to do.
I want to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
I want to interrupt you for 1 second. I think there's a million different times when you go into a situation and you're not going to feel like you're fully prepared for the situation. I think there's situations when you are not going to feel like you're going to doubt yourself, right?
Sure.
But the confidence comes, I think, sure, from efforts that you've made in the past. But I think it's the not being afraid to fail and relinquishing yourself from that moment of
that detachment from outcomes.
Yeah, this is just an at bat.
Yeah,
people strike out all the time. It's not going to be your last. It's not going to be your last at bat.
If I screw it up, I'm gonna I'm gonna seek out the obstacle. I'm gonna seek out the challenge. If I flub it, that's fine. I'll learn from it. I'll be better for it next time. Moving on. Like, that's just the mentality you've got to have.
Yeah, I mean, while there's a level of confidence in what the building blocks that you've put in place to make that wall stronger, I think that really you're never going to be sure if the wrecking ball can't come and knock that wall down.
Sure.
Until the wrecking ball hits it. And I think the confidence comes from, knowing that you can build it back up again, and knowing you can push yourself forward, and knowing that I'm able to put in the work. And when you go into a situation where you doubt yourself, just saying, I'm going to do my best, and whatever happens, happens.
I agree.
If I'm going to a no listing appointment, do I want to get every listing? Hell yeah, I want to get every listing. Do I walk into listings after the fact and say, maybe I don't need that listing. Maybe it's not the right fit with the client. Maybe I didn't do the best job selling myself to that particular person. There's a million different outcomes that can happen. At the end of the day, either get it or I don't.
You maybe you're just off your game that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't sleep well, woke up, I had a kink in my neck, feel like crap.
But if I can be introspective and
I got a flat tire,
say, okay, what did I do wrong? How can I make that better the next time?
Yeah, man.
That's what the hell it's about. Not about if you got it or not.
I agree.
Gonna go number 10.
Let's do it. Achieve greatness. Great things come from hard work and perseverance. No excuses. I think two things, or a couple things. Greatness, you have to identify and define greatness for yourself. What is that, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that comes from, again, that long-term vision and, you traveling your path. I equate greatness and excellence are kind of synonymous to me. Like, I have a standard. Mm-hmm. Greatness, excellence, standards, those are all kind of parallel to me.
But you know what those are? Those are daily things.
Yes.
Greatness is a daily thing, not a.
There's no
it's
destination
not
where it's like, I've arrived. Greatness.
Right. It's not the end of. It's not you standing on the podium at the end of the race.
Because again, there's no there. There's no there. So if there is no there, what is greatness? Greatness is this path that I'm on, and there is no arriving, right? Unless you arrive and then you keel over dead, then I guess technically there. But that's not going to happen.
All right. So you're a Formula One driver. Just as an example, this is something I love Formula One, right? You're a Formula One driver. Greatness is not you standing on the podium with the trophy. Greatness is you taking every single turn in the race
Yeah.
with excellence.
Greatness
And
is the process.
Greatness is you focusing and hitting the gas pedal faster than everyone at the start of the race. Greatness is you knowing what you got to do to get to the end of the race, being prepared and making every single moment count, every single turn, every single time you slam on the brake, every time you press on the gas, making that the best time you've done it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you equate that to us and what we do every day. Greatness is not about where we landed, right? When we're there, right? When we're 65, that's not the greatness. The greatness is about us in our moment,
Mm-hmm.
us when we wake up every day, just trying to make the best of every day and the best of every phone call and the best of every workout and the best of every time we have with our family and the compilation of that is what allows you or makes you great in retrospect.
Yeah, greatness doesn't happen on accident. You don't just wake up one day and all things, just the stars align and you achieve some sort of greatness, whether that's in your job, your whatever. That's, like you said, a daily intentional focus, action. It is action. You have to take action, right? Like if you want to achieve greatness, you have to do something. There is, an action item that follows that. I want to sell 100 houses this year. Well, guess what? You're not going to wake up tomorrow and then it just starts happening because you put it into the atmosphere, right? Like there's action items that go with that. And those, if you're not following those action items, which is what the greatness is, then you're not going to get to 100 houses. It's just not going to happen. You're not
right. And then if you sold 20 houses last year, you're not going to sell 100 this year. Sure. In most cases, unless you put in the effort between the beginning of the year and the end of the year, there's no way you're going to get to 100 if you only sold 20 the year before. And it's unlikely you can get there. But can you get there the following year because you went from 20 to 50? Hell yeah.
Sure.
And then you work from there.
You just keep going. You keep
going, man.
You just keep going, and you keep going, and then you do it again, and then you reevaluate, and you do it again, and that's why at the beginning, and this all relates, right? Like people take these topics and they're like, oh, well, that's just like He-Man stuff, and I'm not a football player, I'm not an athlete, or whatever. This doesn't apply to me. 100% applies to you.
It applies to every single thing.
Everything you're going to do, your relationship with your kids, your family, your whatever, it all is applicable. There's crossover with all of it. It's not meant to be some kind of He-Man heroic speech. These are just, these are basic things that, will impact your life and the joy you get out of your life,
Yeah. And I think the reason why we did this episode is not because it's something that we just think we're the greatest at. It's something that we think we try to keep in our mind and not even just the 10 commandments of Kobe.
Right.
It's something that you and I as entrepreneurs are considerate of and try to be intentional at and recognize we're on the journey and trying to improve. And so having conversations about this and being thoughtful about this on a daily basis is something we wanted to share and
Sure.
Share our perspective on, and also motivate each other with, right?
Sure. And you and I have lots of conversations. I do a lot of networking type activity, right? And you have conversations with people, especially now, and they're not happy with how things are going, right? Whether it be their business, their work-life balance, whatever it is, there's their
home life. Yeah.
There's something that they're not, getting joy from in their life, right? Well, what are you going to do? What are you doing about it? I think you could take all 10 of these and, you kind of start with almost like be a long-term thinker. Like, what are my goals? And then everything else just kind of falls in line with that. Like, okay, what are you doing about it? What are you, anything in your life that you're not happy about, unless you've just got, like, you were born without a leg, what are you doing about it? If there's
you have an opportunity to change it, right?
Yeah,
give yourself the opportunity to change it by putting in the effort.
You have to. And anything else, like, if you're not happy with your production and someone tells you what you need to do to get to the production that you want, and you don't do that, that's on you. Like, there's no market, there's no nothing. Like, you didn't do the work. Don't expect to get results from work you didn't put in. And that goes for everything. And far as like takeaways from all of these, it's finding your passion, being, thinking in the big picture of things, and then just being locked in and just being focused. Like, this is what I'm after. I'm comfortable with the fact that I might not ever get there, but that's okay. It's not about getting there. There is no there. I'm just going to focus on what I got to do day to day to get closer and closer and closer. And then when my time's up, I gave it everything I had. And then that's the end.
That's right.
They throw you in the dirt. Like, that's it. Because in the
you got one shot at it, right?
I used earlier, if you're just here, chances are you're not going to be Alexander the Great or somebody in the grand scheme of things. Like, nobody's going to remember you. 500 years from now, nobody's going to know who Kobe Bryant is. Nobody's going to know who any of those people are. They'll be in a book somewhere, and that will be the end. And so
Kobe's are 1 in a billion, right?
On you.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the end of the day, those Kobe's of the world are 1 in a billion. There's say he's one of the top 10 best players in the world. There's only 10 best players out of
thousands.
Well, let's call it billions, right?
True. Yeah. Because everybody
Yeah. So, you just have to think about it within yourself and within your opportunities, and
am I growing
within your at bats. I think this is a great conversation. Obviously, I'm gonna drop the 10 Kobe success mamba mentality commandments, so to speak. I'll drop it in the description on our YouTube channel. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'm going to leave you with another Kobe speech. It's a short one, but it's a great one. So I want to share this with you real quick.
Cue it up.
And you work hard. Those times when you get up early and you work hard. Those times when you stay up late and you work hard. Those times when you don't feel like working, you're too tired, you don't want to push yourself, but you do it anyway. That is actually the dream. That's the dream. It's not the destination, it's the journey. And if you guys can understand that, then what you'll see happen
is that you won't accomplish your dreams. Your dreams won't come true. Something greater will. Thank you guys so much. I love you. And, Mamba out. Those times when you...
That was the last speech that Kobe ever gave in public. Gives you chills,
Good
huh?
one. Yeah, man.
All right. Mamba out.
Mamba out. It was good.